Alex Vanover, and welcome back to my craft room. And if you are new here, then welcome, because I am so glad that you're here. In this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to put this gorgeous metal vinyl on a champagne glass. I'm going to show you how to place it super even and super straight. You guys are going to love this. So let's jump into it. So the first step to applying vinyl to your champagne flutes is to first choose your design. And I have a couple pieces of advice for you as to how to make that a little bit easier on yourself. The first thing that you can do to make it easier on yourself is to not choose a super thin font. So I'm just going to do a bride example. And I'm going to be using Welcome Script, which is already selected for this font. And I love Welcome Script because it has a little bit of style to it. It looks very much handwritten, but it doesn't have, it's not super thin, and it doesn't have a ton of glyphs. Glyphs are also known as tails. This would be an example of like a very small glyph, but you guys, I'm sure, have seen the fonts where, you know, the tails are going all the way out to the side. And while those are really pretty, they don't last long term when it comes to things that are going to be hand washed, like champagne flutes are. So if you're not going to be using them very often, then the glyphs are probably okay. But if you are making this and you're planning on drinking champagne out of it all throughout your engagement, I probably wouldn't recommend doing anything that has a ton of glyphs. Or if you want the application to be easy, don't pick a font that's super thin. So those are my two pieces of advice for you. I'm going to move the letters manually here in just a second to get this word all set up, but I do want to also explain that I am going to show you how to place the letters when they are going down the side of the champagne flute. This exact same technique applies if you are doing them horizontally, but I'm going to show you how to do this vertically because I just think the letters are going to be bigger and easier to read. But of course, that's a style thing. Like I said, you can apply these principles to anything, like no matter which direction you're applying that vinyl. So the letter spacing needs to go down to 0. That is one way to make your life a little bit easier when it comes to manually moving your letters. It's not going to get everything completely there because you can see there are still plenty of gaps here, but at least things are going to be a little bit closer, you know? So I kind of try to pick a letter. So like the letter B is going to be my base, and I'm just going to move my letters over to go toward that B. That way I'm not shifting in both directions and getting my text kind of looking a little bit scattered. And I'm also not going to connect the I to this R because it's kind of a funky style R, and I don't think it would look right if I had my I connected. So that's just me, and that's just a quirk of Welcome Script, but of course that's totally up to you. So next I'm going to click and drag a box around the whole word bride, and I'm going to click weld. And now I need to size my word for my champagne flute. And so I already did this. I already measured what the size I want it to be. This is for a stemless champagne flute. So I highly recommend you take your own measurements when it comes to figuring out what size you want to make this decal, because it's really going to depend on the champagne flute. So for the width, I don't want the width to be more than 4 inches. But another really important factor, and it looks like this is going to work out anyways, is the height needs to be relatively thin, which means that you don't want to have to turn your champagne glass side to side in order to be able to read the entire word. So I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees, and I'm going to show you guys what I'm talking about. So this is how I'm going to be placing my word on my champagne glass, and I don't want to have to turn my champagne glass to be able to see the full word. You want that to appear all on one side. So 1.7 inches is just about right for the width, which is this direction. I was going to say no more than a max of 2 inches actually, so that works out perfectly. So once you have your decal all together, you have it welded if you're using a script font, and then you have it sized. Next, we're going to move on to the make it screen. And it's gone back to the normal orientation, which is totally fine because it doesn't matter when it comes to application. I just wanted you guys to see what I was talking about. And if you decide to apply your vinyl vertically, or excuse me, horizontally like this technique I'm going to show you applies exactly the same way. So don't worry, no matter what your style is, this technique is still going to work. So we're not using heat transfer vinyl, so there's no need to mirror. We're going to move on to continue. And then once your machine connects, you can select the cut setting that you need to use based on the type of vinyl that you're using. So I'm going to be using StarCraft Metal in the chrome gold color because I really like the shiny gold color. I think it's very weddingy and very pretty. And I have already researched the settings for this. If you don't know what settings you're using, I highly recommend that you go check out 143vinyl.com's cut settings document. What I have found with mine is that I need to use everyday iron on with less pressure. That's just a quirk with my machine. Make sure that you do test cuts if you're not sure how to find that cut setting. And if you need to see a video on what a test cut is, I have a great video that I will link right up here in the corner of the screen for you guys, showing you how to walk through all that, because that's definitely another topic for another day. So now I'm going to load my StarCraft Metal Vinyl into my machine. I'm going to cut it out, and then I'll show you guys how to weed it and apply it perfectly straight to your champagne flutes. So now that my vinyl decal is already cut, I'm gonna go ahead and set it aside. And I'm actually first gonna clean my champagne glass with a little bit of rubbing alcohol to make sure that the surface is totally clean and ready for the vinyl itself. And the reason for that is that sometimes, especially when these are being stored in the stores before you buy them, they tend to get really dusty and a lot of people have touched them. So you don't want a ton of that oil on the glass before you apply the vinyl. So I'm literally just applying alcohol to a cotton pad and wiping off the area that I'm going to be applying the vinyl. And we'll let that set aside and dry while we are weeding. And be careful that none of the cotton residue is left behind. That's easy to do as well. See, as you guys can see, it was not the cleanest glass, which is why it's really helpful to clean it before you apply your vinyl. So next I'm gonna be weeding my vinyl. So it should be pretty easy because again, you don't wanna choose a super complex design for something like a champagne glass. It's just gonna make your life more difficult. So you can definitely do it if you're really passionate about it, but I recommend keeping it super simple. I will go ahead and link this StarCraft Metal Vinyl for you guys in the description in case you guys want to check it out. I love how shiny it is. I just think it's so pretty. It's very wedding-esque. It is a little bit more difficult to work with than your average adhesive vinyl film. So if you're brand new to adhesive vinyl, you may just want to stick with something like StarCraft HD or just like a regular permanent vinyl. This stuff I would say is a little bit of a step up from that, but it's really pretty, so it's worth it. There we go. All right, and then once your design is weeded, next, of course, you're going to apply your transfer tape. So I normally use clear medium tack from 143vinyl.com. This is their blue grid transfer tape, which is also a medium tack, but I really like using this stuff because it's a little bit stickier than their regular clear medium tack. And I think for a vinyl like this, it is worth using a slightly stickier transfer tape just because, like I said, the film's a little bit different to work with. So it's not difficult, but the stickier transfer tape makes it easier, in my opinion. So now that I've got it trimmed and everything, I'm gonna go ahead and pull my transfer tape off of there and apply it to my vinyl. Then I'll use a squeegee to burnish or rub it so that the transfer tape and the vinyl have really good contact. All right, so here is where the really helpful part comes in. So I'm gonna be using my squeegee from 143vinyl.com. As you guys can see, these little ridges down here on the side are helping to keep my glass straight so that I can apply my vinyl super easily. So I'm gonna lay my champagne glass on top of this, and then I'm gonna turn it sideways since I'm gonna be applying my vinyl down the side like this. Then you're gonna need a piece of painter's tape. I have my little bit thinner, I believe this is like 1/2 or 3/4 inch painter's tape. If you have regular painter's tape, if that's too thick, if you have a super small design, you can cut your transfer tape in half lengthwise, or excuse me, you can cut your painter's tape in half lengthwise so that it is a little bit thinner and easier to work around. And I'm just gonna get just enough painter's tape so that it's a little bit wider than this decal. Just like that. Then I'm gonna rip this off. So here is what you are starting with, and you may wanna trim any extra backing off. I always think that makes it a little bit easier with this technique. The technique that we're gonna be using is called the hinge method. And what the hinge method does is it allows you to be able to place your vinyl exactly where you want it without accidentally placing it crooked. It kind of gives you just a little bit more freedom to place your decals. So as you can see, we have our transfer tape on our vinyl, but we still have the backing on it. And the reason for that is because we're gonna go ahead and place our decal on the glass before we peel that transfer tape off. So once you're happy with the placement of your vinyl, you want to go ahead and put the painter's tape down on the glass just like this. And so this is what's going to hold it in place when we go to apply it so that we get it exactly where we want it. We don't end up accidentally placing it crooked. So you can take as much time as you need to there to get your decal placed. But once you're ready, you want to peel back both the vinyl and the transfer tape like this. And it might be a little bit tricky on a champagne glass, and the reason for that is because it is curved in both directions. It's a little bit curved down the side and a little bit tapered here at the bottom. So that does make it a little bit tricky, but all we're gonna do is cut some slits in our transfer tape and in our backing as well, and that's gonna help us peel everything up. So we're gonna peel everything up just like this. There we go. All right, and then once you have some of the backing peeled up, you're actually gonna cut off the paper backing, just like this. And then you're gonna lay your vinyl and your transfer tape back down onto the glass. And that is where the hinge method gets its name, because this area right here is gonna now serve as our hinge. So now we can remove the painter's tape, and then we can peel back the rest of our decal very carefully because we don't want to damage this area right here. And now we can remove our backing just like this. But now that you have your initial vinyl and transfer tape in place, you're not going to have to worry about messing up the application, which is super, super helpful. So now we can just really slowly and carefully place our decal down the rest of the glass. And then once I have a piece down the middle adhered, I go ahead and work the top and the bottom separately, just to make sure that all the vinyl gets really good contact with the glass and no wrinkling or anything occurs. And we'll go ahead and fix that when we remove the transfer tape. So after you push it down with your fingers, the next step is to go over it with your squeegee and give it another light burnish. Now you can see that I have that one little area that is wrinkled from a wrinkle in my transfer tape. And so all I'm gonna do is actually lift that little loop with my pin pen like this. And then I'm gonna kind of rework it down with my fingers to work any of that extra vinyl down. And then when you're done, you've got a perfectly placed vinyl decal with no wrinkles or anything like that. If we haven't already connected on social media, I would love to get to know you and see what you're crafting. So if you share out anything that you've made using my tutorials, please use the hashtag DIYAlex if you share it on Instagram. And if you want to connect with me on any major social platform, you can find me at DIYAlexVanover. I'll also put links down in the description of this video so that you can find me super easily. And if you haven't already, please click right here to subscribe to the DIY Alex YouTube channel. Scroll down just a little bit and ring the bell right next to subscribe so that you never miss when I upload a new video, Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Cheers, y'all.